Hi and welcome to day 14 of the Dry Jan plan. Today I want to talk about menopause. There's lots of information out there around menopause, but particularly where alcohol's concerned. I just want you to think back to before you stopped drinking for dry January and what your menopause symptoms were like. And just now we're 2 weeks in to dry January. It'd be really interesting to see if your symptoms have improved, especially your hot flushes. I remember when I used to drink red wine, I had a hand fan at the side of my chair because you could guarantee within a couple of sips of my glass of wine, I would get the most horrendous hot flush. And I didn't realise then that it actually was the alcohol that was causing the hot flush and bringing it on. And that's because it's what's called a vasodilator, which means it actually expands your blood vessels. So you're going to start feeling warm. Plus, it also affects your hypothalamus. No, not your hypothalamus. That's wrong. Hang on a minute. I've got some notes here. Oh, it is your hypothalamus. I was right. Which is responsible for your temperature. So drinking affects that part of your brain, and it also affects this part of our brain also affects sleep patterns, the hypothalamus. And if you go back to the dry jam plan day 5, I talk about sleep. I thankfully never had any night sweats, but I had several friends that would wake up in the middle of the night absolutely wet through. Then their nightdress or their bed sheet would be absolutely wringing wet. And that's because alcohol does affect our temperature regulating part of our brain, which is the hypothalamus. So it would be interesting if you made a note of whether or not your night sweats are better if you indeed suffered with them. And what about your sleeping? Has that improved? Because when you're not putting alcohol into your body doesn't have to release cortisol, which is a stress hormone, to counteract the alcohol. So maybe you're not getting that 3 or 4 o'clock wake up. I think it's really good to take a few minutes and actually notice what the differences are. I mean, we don't always know the differences because internally things are shifting, things are changing. Alcohol can affect our bone density, and obviously osteoporosis is a big thing around menopause. So I went and had a bone scan. I think I paid privately for it. It was only about £100, I think, and I really did want to know whether my bone health was good, and thankfully it was. So my drinking over a decade of drinking, thankfully, had not impacted on my bone health. But there's other things like our cholesterol. It affects our blood pressure. So a lot of people talk about their heart rate reducing when they stop drinking. So there's that the cardiac side, the heart health side of it as well. And that's not even mentioning moods. Now, the part of our brain that alcohol affects is called our amygdala. And our amygdala is responsible for those anxiety and those fearful feelings. So I used to wake up again because of drinking at night time. It affects our sleep pattern, and because of the cortisol, which is a stimulant, we get that 3-4 a.m. wake up quite often after we've been drinking. And because it's affected our amygdala, which is the emotional center of our brain, then we're probably experiencing some anxiety. We catastrophize everything in the middle of the night. We always think the world's going to fall apart, and we lay there for an hour, 2 hours, just worrying about anything and everything. So again, it will be interesting to see if that's improved, and if you're not waking up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning anymore because you're sleeping really well and you're having a deep sleep because you're not having your glass of wine or whatever you have before bed, and it's really out of your system now, and your body's rebalancing, and those chemicals are switching back on again instead of relying on the alcohol to do all the switching on the chemicals, because alcohol also affects our melatonin, and our melatonin is that chemical that helps us get ready for sleep and helps us to wind down. So there's lots of things that you could be probably noticing around menopause and your symptoms, especially around your mood. I remember, I remember at work, feeling really angry. I'm such a sort of placid, easygoing person, but I used to have this internal anger that would be bubbling up inside me, and I feel like sticking a knife in somebody, which is just like so out of character for me. I wouldn't show it, I wouldn't be rude to anybody, but I could just feel it bubbling up inside, and I'd have to take myself off somewhere just to do some deep breaths and just to calm myself down. Um, Obviously, breast cancer is a biggie as well. Now, if you look back at my podcast episodes and scroll back to, I think it was probably about October when it was Breast Awareness Month, or maybe November, and I've got a coaching friend called Kath Elliott, who's an Australian lady. She came on to talk about her experience with breast cancer. She was diagnosed with grade 4 breast cancer. She was a binge drinker, and it is really interesting to listen to her because she talks about how alcohol can increase our risk by 15% by just 3 drinks a week. Now, 3 drinks is 3 units, and if you're drinking something that's sort of 14% on the wine side, or even if you're having a gin and tonic, which is 40% alcohol, then you're drinking more than you should, basically, to get my words out. So yeah, 3 drinks or more a week increases your risk by 15%. So in a bottle, there's 9 units in a bottle. So the chief medical officer advises no more than 14 units a week. So that is really only about, on average, about 7 drinks. Now, that's not 7 big glasses of wine, that's 7 units. So it's just being aware of how many units you're drinking when you were drinking. And if you are deciding to go back to drinking again in February, then just be aware that it's only 8 grams of alcohol per serving. So you're looking at 100 millilitres of wine or alcohol. And that is, you remember the little 125 stubby glasses back in the 70s and 80s? That is less than one of them. So if you're pouring yourself a large drink, you can guarantee that's probably 3 units, because we all know, well, I certainly did, a bottle of wine for me was 3 large glasses, which is 9 units. So if you're having, that's really only a bottle and a half a week, and you're at your 14 unit limit. So it's just being aware really of, how much you're consuming, because we often relate to one drink being 1 unit, and that's absolutely not true. So yeah, just be aware of what you're pouring. I think that's the important thing, really. Yeah, so that's it really about menopause today. That's all I wanted to say, was just to challenge you to see if your menopause symptoms have improved. Let's hope they have. And here's to another couple of weeks alcohol free. So take care, and I'll catch you again tomorrow. Bye bye.